The Team Never Quit podcast is sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. Members of Navy Federal can enjoy a hassle-free car buying experience. You can learn all about this at Navy Federal. Welcome back to another episode of the Team Never Quit podcast. As always, thank you guys for listening and watching, and please go hit that like and subscribe button wherever you get your show. So today we have on such a great guest, but before we get into that, let's kick it off with our Patreon question of the day, which is, what popular trends do you see nowadays that you just don't get?
Oh. I mean, I absolutely do not understand like the girls with shaved heads and the like multiple colors and stuff like that. I just don't understand it. Which my husband would probably like it.
I do like that.
Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't bother me at all, man. Girls, you rock it.
I don't. Yeah, I just don't get it.
The kids with the shoes untied. What? I mean, I spent a long time teaching my kid to tie his shoes, and they did this. And the cool thing to do is not tie their damn shoes. Who knew, right?
Or it's just laziness.
No, he's not lazy. That's the problem. So, I mean, everything else is squared away, so I know it's a thing.
Yeah. Matt, what do you think?
Oh man, I'd say that the trend of everyone speaking in terms of like a Twitter feed thing, or what's the other ones? By the way, I'm terrible with social media, but like I feel like my kids reference things that no adult could possibly know because they live in this social media realm. So whatever all these sayings are that are coming off these videos that these kids watch on a regular basis, I don't want any of that. I'm good with all that.
Yeah, talking in text code.
You got
Sometimes a lot of those TikTok dances, I just don't really get it. It's not one thing that I have really started to do, and I'm holding strong.
I feel like you would do that.
Thanks, Mom.
yeah, appreciate you. That's a freaking top rope right there.
I feel like
Mom just shut him down. Boom.
Thanks, Mom. I appreciate that.
I'm a grown ass man. Really? Oh.
I feel like you would embrace like one of those dances.
I mean, there is some trends that I'll do, but the TikTok dancing is just different story.
You don't like it. Sean, do you have one?
Yeah, there's a lot of trends I don't understand, honestly. I think the trend itself is kind of fascinating. It's how does that happen? How do people all become attached to this idea and do this silly thing? And I think all of them are kind of interesting, and I don't understand any of them.
Also, acid wash jeans. They should have just been left in the 80s.
Oh, so you're talking about like a 70s thing coming
Yeah.
back that shouldn't have?
Yeah.
Because this.
Yeah.
I don't get the. Yeah.
I used to wear those.
Yeah.
I did too. I was in the 90s, man. That's freaking was awesome. I thought freaking whatever. All right.
All right. That's good. Yeah. Good one.
All right, so today we've got a great guest for you guys. Matt Light is a former New England Patriot and 3-time Super Bowl champion, with also 3 trips to the Pro Bowl over 11 seasons. Him and his wife also founded the Light Foundation to give young people an experience to enjoy the outdoors and just help them develop their skills, values, mindset, and whatever they need to create a meaningful and productive future. So welcome to the show, Matt.
Hey, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Every now and again, I get a file on somebody whose resume reads like it's fake. I mean, a couple of times they stand out. Like you hear one thing after another, and it's pretty good. And then, so I'm always curious when I run across one of y'all, where you come from, like who your people are and what developed you, kind of deal. So thanks again for coming on, brother Matt. I mean, seriously, and I'm just curious as to how we got here.
Yeah.
How we get right here, right?
Yeah, what led to this, and how can we prevent this from ever happening on the planet again?
Right. Yeah, because you can't. I have a feeling it's one of those journeys where like, hey, man, I got on the path, started walking, right? And then here we are.
Yeah. What a great question, because it's honestly something that fuels every day of my life, right? Like and I don't think I knew this growing up. I don't think I knew this when I was in college. I don't think I knew this during my 11-year career, although I start to see it take shape. But, the thing that excites me today, the thing that I sit back and just ponder on a regular basis are all the people that I've met in my life. Like I'm a people person. Again, I didn't really know that early on, but, I was blessed from an early age to be surrounded by doers, people that were creative, innovative, crafty. They thought outside the box. I like to say that I don't belong to clubs, but I like a lot of people that are in them, right? So listen, I've been blessed. I guess the short way to say it is I grew up in a very small town with kind of legends as grandparents. Both my grandparents on my dad's side, I wasn't able to meet my grandfather, but I feel like I did because of all the stories and the people that would come up to me and talk to me about different members of my family and the things that they did for them and how cool it was to be around them. And so, and I was around a lot of those same folks growing up, right? Uncles and cousins and grandmothers that, just poured into me on a regular basis. And, I didn't know that we didn't have money or had a lot of money. I didn't know anything about money. I grew up very simply. We did a lot in the outdoors. We were hunting and fishing. We did these pre-1800 encampments called rendezvous where we're throwing tomahawk and knife competitions and, muzzleloader and flintlock competitions. And that was my world. And then I had somebody tell me, hey, man, you have an opportunity to play college football and they'll pay for your school. And I thought, damn, that's pretty cool because my dad just got done telling me he's not paying for it. So, I had no idea about much outside of my little world. And then I was thrust into the college football scene. I truly had never seen a game in my life until I played in my first college game. I'd never seen
hold on. We missed something from tomahawks to college football, bro.
Yeah.
And the best part of what you talk about is if you don't know when you're poor, I've noticed something when you get to the end like this too. You're looking back. I remember there was always a feeling that went with when you got something that you normally didn't have.
Yeah.
You remember that kind of thing? Like now when you want something like, hey, even working hard for it and then going to get it, there's still a different feeling when you're young. When you have access to that.
No doubt. And what's interesting today is a lot of kids don't feel that because everything comes too easy. Mm-hmm. Right. Like there's not a struggle for it. There's not even having to beg. Remember having to beg your parents? You're like, can I
layaway? There used to be a damn thing called layaway, bro. Even before that, there was in my family, it's a 2-week rule. Like if you want something, Dad's like 2 weeks. You still want it? We'll talk about it. And then you had to work for it. Then you worked for it. Then it went on layaway. I mean, you really wanted to have something to go through this crap that you and I did. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it was powerful too. I mean, gosh, not knowing that you don't have money or you do have money, I think it speaks to the people that are in your life, right? Like there was my father would never do something for money. A matter of fact, he's the smartest guy I've ever been around in my life. He's the most creative. I mean, I've been wanting to do a story on my father for a long time and document people like him. I call them the pyramid effect because, or people like him, I equate it to the pyramid effect. At one point in time, how the pyramids were built wasn't common knowledge, but it was pretty well understood, right? They did it at a very high rate, meaning they did it very well. Now we have no idea. Well, there's people that are in their late 70s, mid 70s and older that are holding a lot of the keys to the real knowledge, institutional knowledge, the kind of knowledge that if you didn't have the books, you could build off of that knowledge to pretty much solve anything. And they're the gatekeepers, right? The Rosetta Stones, whatever you want to call them. I call it the pyramid effect. And my father's one of those people. And so he never did a thing for money. Matter of fact, I don't even know if he's ever had a bank account or a savings account. And that's the mindset that we grew up in. Hey, let's have fun in what we do. Let's do it at a very high level. Let's try to help as many people along the way as we can. And we did that through mission trips with our church, just helping people out in our community. I mean, that's what was important. And none of it revolved around football. So, yeah, I made the jump just because, my lifestyle growing up, I think is kind of unique. I mean, I was the kid sewing rabbit fur blankets. My aunt taught me how to sew rabbit fur blankets together. Like, why is that something that a kid gets into? I have no idea, but I loved it. And I loved all those kind of activities that, involved the outdoors, friends and family, doing things at a high level, and just having fun along the way. Ending up in football, I mean, that was kind of the farthest thing from my imagination as a kid, but it became a reality.
What state did you grow up in?
I grew up right on I was in Ohio, right on the Indiana border. So I grew up north of Dayton, Ohio, west central Ohio.
Okay, Marcus was just in Indiana, on the Indiana side. And what town was that? Shipshewana?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Shipshewana.
Oh, yeah.
Indiana.
You're up there in Amish country, loving life, eating good food.
I got a great family up there now. That town is awesome. Shipshewana, that's a real place.
He said it's
paradise stuck right in the middle of the United States.
Marcus never sends me pictures when he's out of town, like ever. And even if I beg him to. When he was in Shipshewana, he probably sent me 30 pictures. He was so excited.
This is great, man.
And said it was so beautiful. It looked like a movie set.
Well, yeah.
So that's right. Is that near you within a couple hours?
Yeah, he was up in northern Indiana, more northern Indiana. We're a little south of that. I grew up, and I know that everyone's going to know who this is on this show, but not a lot of people do in today's world. But the home of Annie Oakley, kind of a big deal.
That's awesome.
Kind of, it is. That's a big deal. I know exactly who that is.
Yeah, a little Miss Sure Shot.
That is so cool. Okay, yeah, I'm trying to picture where you grew up. I didn't know if it was like Texas, West Virginia, or.
So what are we talking about? You went from high school. Is this like, are we talking about the movie like Waterboy, and you just went straight from the country into football and just dominated? Because that's what I wish I had a reference or not, but
yeah, no, it's basically I'm playing football, right? And I remember I got kicked out of a game. I had to drive to watch my own team play the following week, right, with my dad. And we're sitting in the stands, and he's like, hey, this isn't a good situation. I'm like, yeah, Dad, I know. He's like, well, you need to focus. If this is something you really want to do, you better focus. Now, keep in mind, my father never played sports. He had severe polio, from birth, basically. And he's got one leg. It's real tiny, but he's always been able to, get things done. And so he couldn't really relate to me in the sports world. So he would always talk to me about how to play, as an offensive lineman or just the game of football from an engineer's standpoint, right? He was always.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's my favorite part. So he spoke a different language to you.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, and it's funny you say language, because he always talked about how, look, math is just a language. There's a lot of things that are just a language, and it's really about how you interpret it, understanding the terminology, and then being able to execute, at a high level, because you understand, how the different moving parts all interact and go together. Once you can speak that language, you're good. So
what is that? It's almost like a perfect logic. If someone, an engineer, say from NASCAR, can speak to somebody who is in a computer field, but they talk a similar language, you just get it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain things that your dad said, I bet when he said it, you're like, oh, I understand that.
Yeah.
And you can see it. Not only that, you can explain it to somebody, and that's wonderful logic.
Well, and you think about the the COs that you've had, you think about like the coaches, right? Like in sports, and man, there were coaches that I had, they were speaking Swahili. I have no idea what they were trying to tell me. You know what I mean? And I would go home, and it's not as if I would sit there and debate with my father. My dad was independent to a fault growing up. Spent like the first 7 or 8 years of his life in a hospital, taught himself how to play he can play any instrument on earth, toured with the big bands like Woody Herman, Cy Zentner, never went to college, but has many patents, and he's brilliant. He's a different guy, but when he would talk to me about football, I got it. It made sense to me, and it helped me on the field, right? And then, the idea that I was going to go play college football just never entered my mind, because I didn't really get the whole premise of it, right? They're going to pay for your school. They'll take care of you. You got all these opportunities. I just felt blessed from day one. So yeah, I mean, to sum it all up, I'm a kid that grew up in a unique home with some really powerful people that poured into me, invested a lot into me. And then I hit, I don't want to say the lucky streak. I worked hard for it, but I was very fortunate to end up in the path that I ended up on.
That's really awesome. What college did you end up going to for our listeners?
So I went to Purdue. It's about 2.5 hours straight west of where I grew up. I can remember riding my Honda Shadow, my Hardley. It was one tank of gas could get me from my farm.
I know what that is.
Yeah, buddy. I mean, think about that. One tank. I think it was like 3 gallons or maybe less. And I could get from, Greenville, Ohio to West Lafayette, Indiana.
That's awesome.
So siblings, I mean, when you talk about in the direction that you go in, people who have great fathers, some of them don't go in similar directions. Sometimes that doesn't rub off. I mean,
yeah,
who else was around you that kind of kept you pushing in that direction? Basically what I want to know, there's always something, like when you catch a whiff of something and you get on that, and when you activate and you can't stop, right? That's your focus. What was that lit football up in you? Was there a TV movie? Did somebody bring you somewhere? Somebody say something?
Well, so two parts to that. So one, I love the game of football. I think my mom I haven't spoken about. My mom was the metronome, right? And I don't just say that because she taught music for 35 years, which she did. My mom was so consistent in how she raised us. My dad was, so creative. I mean, we'd come home, he'd have like 7 pairs of glasses on. He'd have the pocket protector. He'd be, charting some nebula or star cluster with his astronomy, stuff that he did. I mean, he did everything, right? And he's literally building computers. And this is back when there was TI-82s, and he's soldering all this stuff
great
together.
Cool, by the way. I had one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So I'm watching all this, but then in the background, there's the person that actually made sure we got to school on time, that we did our own laundry, by the way. I did my own laundry since the time I was 7.
Yeah.
And that was my dad.
Moms, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, but my mom, she was so consistent with us and pushing us. And there was one time I had gotten a paper route in probably, let's say, March. I wanted to earn some money. And we got to the point where it was going to be football season was about to start up. And we were going to have practices, and I was in junior high. And I said, Mom, I'm going to quit my paper route. And she goes, oh, no, you're not quitting your paper route. You're doing both. You don't sign up and then walk away. And I said, well, I can't do both. And she goes, well, then you're not playing football because you're already committed to that paper route. And so that was the only year that I didn't play. Now I stopped with my paper route, thank God, went back to playing football, but she was the disciplinarian. She was the one that instilled a lot in me. And I think my love of football came from the fact that my mom was always like, hey, get out of the house. I don't want you in the house. Get out of the house. You're destroying everything. You're eating everything. You're eating me out of house and home, right? And go play this sport because I know you love it. And secondarily to that, I never went to jail when I hit somebody with pads on. So that's look, yeah. I don't sugarcoat it. I tell kids this all the time. Football is a violent sport, and it should be. Now, it's not so violent anymore, but it should be a violent sport. But the caveat is it's controlled violence. Yeah. It's done within a set of rules. I love that. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, you know what kind of violence you're getting into. That's
no doubt.
It's a man in the arena. Talk about when your mom, because it's different saying it now when you're older, because your mom can still crack the whip, right? But when they do that, say, hey, you can't play football, you got to keep that paper out. You're not happy like we are right now. And when we're like, yeah, Mom was great. That was an awesome thing to do. I'm so glad she did. When the moment transpires, you're pissed off. You all you wanted to do is quit the paper route. So there's that. For you young ones going through it, when that does happen to you, remember, It is for a reason.
Yeah, it sucks in the moment, but it's a life lesson that will
I mean,
transpire.
if you really wanted to play football, you'd go back.
Yeah. I think again, and as a parent myself now, I've got 4 kids, and you struggle. Like even today, we took the family out. We went to Cracker Barrel, which that's gone downhill. Hate to say that.
Yeah. No,
sorry if Cracker Barrel's a big supporter, but we're not dealing with the same world that we used to back in the day. But we go there, and they got the little store, and my daughter's like, "Dad, can I get this?" And it's like
everything.
Yeah, everything. They want everything, right? And yeah, it sucks to tell your kids no. I mean, we could get it for her, but is it really meaningful? Like to your point, right? You said, hey, talk to me 2 weeks from now and see if you still want that. Yeah, 2 weeks. I mean, it makes so much sense, right? But my mom, she was adamant about whatever you start, you will finish, whether you like it or not. And God bless her for that. If that wouldn't have been something instilled in me at an early age, I could have walked away from a lot in life and missed out on many great opportunities.
So when you were at Purdue, at what point did you realize, okay, I can actually make a living off of this? I'm not just getting school paid for, but this could be my life.
Yeah, how was it? A good time, right? Playing college football? Has to be.
Man, it was unbelievable. So I go to Purdue, and we have a guy named Coach Coletto. He's our head coach, and he was at Ohio State for a little while. He'd been around, and he was a good coach. He just wasn't a great head coach, and he got fired about halfway through the season. And it was
when y'all say that. Explain to me what that means, because there's a huge difference between someone who can coach and someone who's a great leader.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what it is, right? You don't. Look, I think there are a lot of people in positions of leadership that may not be, like, for example, you probably had, people around you that, were superior, in rank but they couldn't have fought as well as you, or they couldn't have done a lot of things that you would put in the badass soldier category, right? But they're damn good leaders. And it's no different in the coaching realm. I was around coaches that, they were more like philosophers. Matter of fact, one of the better coaches I had, he wasn't a guy that would go out there and had never really strapped it on and had much success in the field, but he was damn good at getting, in the case of college, over 100 knuckleheads to all kind of get in line and do the right thing, And he talked about, hey, do what you're supposed to do, the way you're supposed to do it, when it's supposed to be done, and do it that way every time, right? Those kind of leaders are very unique, and they're hard to come by today in the sports realm. I'm sure it's probably easy to say in the military, realm. But I go to Purdue, and I sign on to be underneath this coach who I felt really good about. I liked his staff. I liked the guys that recruited me. I wanted to go to Purdue. They had a phenomenal engineering program. I could relate to engineering realm because of my dad, right? And working with him at his company growing up. So everything was great until he got fired about week 3, actually. But he remained the head coach. And I remember thinking, man, this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is crazy. Because he was a good guy. He was a good coach, but not a good head coach. Not good at instilling confidence when things were rocky or things got difficult, or really being able to communicate the things that we really needed to do to be a better football team.
As a player, what do you think it takes to be that? Like, do you think we actually had this conversation the other day with one of Marcus's best friends. It's a strength and conditioning coach. Do you think it's better to be that guy that's just screaming their head off, yelling at you and just trying to get you in line, or someone that's more strategic in talking to you and problem solving?
It's a good question. And by the way, it doesn't surprise me at all, Marcus, that your friend is a strength and conditioning coach, because those guys are all out of their minds. They're all nuts.
Eddie Wiley. Do you know who that is? Have you ever heard of him?
I don't. Where's he at now?
He's at USC.
USC.
Oh man. All right. So he's definitely out of his mind.
Oh, bro, check it out. From the Cowboys, we grew up together, went to college together. Sam Houston State, went to the Cowboys, went to Texas Tech, went over to Tennessee. How you doing? Then, boom,
yeah, buddy.
jumped over to Texas for a little bit,
UT.
and then went to USC with a minor stop over in Abilene. Oh, excuse me. Thank you. OU. What's OU? I always leave that. That's a Texas thing.
Yeah, he was at OU and now he's at USC.
That's the Texas thing,
they
man.
grew up together and he's a badass. But we were talking about this with him but he was talking about it from a coaching standpoint. I'm curious with you,
because he had a moment.
Yeah, he had a moment with a player where he lost his mind. He was cussing, foaming at the mouth, yelling at him. And the player, college kid, looked at him and said, Coach, when you start cussing and losing your mind, I tune you out. But when you just tell me what I need to do, I can implement that and actually fix it.
But the way you said it, because it's almost like when you're talking to someone you're teaching or you're coaching, you get this kind of a coach's rage. He said the players kind of did him like a psychiatrist, or it was like, hey, coach.
That's so funny you say that, because today I could see that happening a lot. Back in the day, I couldn't imagine that happening. No. And look,
different animals, dude. They're different animals.
They are, and I'm not even trying to say that one's right.
No, I'm not either. Yeah, I would never do that. Right.
Yeah, and to your point though, Melanie, the thing that I think makes a great coach is their ability to switch gears depending on who it is they're coaching. So sometimes you need to MF the guy to death to get him to listen. I would maybe even put myself in that category.
Me too. I completely agree with you. What is that? It's like, is it if you had it growing up, then you don't like it when you're getting coached? There's no telling, right? Because for every time we say, "Oh, it's this," something else will show up. But I'm the same way. When you're yelling at me, you got my attention.
Yes, you have my and part of it. And maybe this is just for me personally as an individual. I think it's the fact that coach could dog cuss me till the cows come home, right? I've already done it far worse than he could ever do it. So I never took it personal because I'm doing it to myself. Like, how the hell did I just allow that to happen? I mean, my God, keep your weight inside, set proper. You overset the son of a bitch. He goes inside. Like, how hard is this? Like, he's yelling at me, but I'm doing the same thing in my head. Okay, I need to, and by the way, the more he yells, the more pissed off I'm getting at myself. I never really directed it at my coach, other than one time here in New England. I let it get to me, and I mouthed off to my head coach, not my head coach, my offensive line coach.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to buckle up because we're diving into a game-changing car experience. Who's up for a ride into the world of Navy Federal Auto Excellence? Now picture this. You're on the brink of owning that dream car you've always been eyeing. The best part, you don't have to play the waiting game anymore. With Navy Federal's Car Buying Center, decisions are made in seconds. And let me tell you, that rush is unbeatable. It's not just a center. It's your ultimate pit stop for everything car related, from researching to financing, buying, and even protecting your precious ride. Buckle up because the ride doesn't end there. Navy Federal's flagship credit card is the turbo boost to your travel dreams. We're talking 3 times points on all those epic trips. And guess what? You can pocket up to $100 in statement credits for TSA PreCheck or global entry.
And it's the only time in my life, and I don't want to say I regret it, but I've got a ton of respect for this guy. Always have, always will. He's one of the best coaches of all time in league history in the game of football, period. His name was Dante Scarnecchia. He's an absolute legend, coached here in New England for, 35, 38 years. Was it SMU back in the day when I think they got the death penalty? Yeah. So he was a part of that. I mean, he is a legend in the coaching community, and I lost my mind on a legend, which is not a smart thing to do, but I felt justified when it happened.
It's like checking Gretzky, man. Somebody had to do it.
Yeah, but you know what? It actually brought us closer when it was all said and done. He didn't talk.
I probably couldn't believe you did it.
Yeah, well, he literally, he would say, we'd be watching film, he's rewinding it, and he's like, somebody tell the left tackle that he sucked on this play. And he'd just rewind. He wouldn't refer to me. He wouldn't talk to me directly. But he had a lot of fun. But it taught me a lesson. And I've always been a fan of, hey, look, whether you like it or not, right? You don't ever mouth off to your superior. You don't ever mouth off to your coach, your boss, or anybody. If you have a problem, find a way to deal with it. And if you need to have real words, do it one-on-one, right? I did this in the middle of a practice. So, I only say that because it taught me a big lesson. But coaches today versus coaches of the past, coaches today don't have the opportunity to really do some of the things that coaches in the past did. Because they don't even really practice that much anymore. And they don't get that much time with these guys doing it at full speed, right? So, I tell you, it's a tough job regardless. But today, I think being a great coach is harder than ever.
So once your coach left at Purdue that you signed up under, did you get a good coach after that, or did it go downhill?
We did. We got a guy that brought a whole different mindset to the Big Ten. We were playing basketball on grass, basically, is what they called it. Drew Brees enters the equation.
The Brees,
good
man.
Texas boy, good.
We actually know him.
Yeah.
Great dude. He's a great guy.
Great guy.
He's the best. I mean, look, I mean, he wouldn't have gone far without a great offensive line, clearly, but just kidding.
Clearly.
No, we had so much fun together, and that era started under Coach Tiller, guys like Breeze, so many other great players that came through Purdue at that time, and we turned things around. I mean, we went from a Big Ten school that everybody kind of laughed at and overlooked to a Big Ten, championship our senior year with Breeze leading the charge. So that was a great experience for me. I mean, it taught me a lot in a short period of time.
We like to go to games. I mean, Hunter over here has gone to so many championship games and just loves the energy and the atmosphere of that. So from someone that had never been to a college football game before you were actually playing in one, being at that championship, that had to just be this moment of like, oh shit, what am I doing? Like,
yeah. And by the way, my family, I mean, we never had a TV on growing up, right? I mean, we weren't, we were outdoors, and my parents, they didn't watch sports, let alone football. And then by the time I get to my senior year at Purdue and, we're playing in the Rose Bowl, they're like crackheads. They know everything about sports. They know everything about the game of football.
That's how it usually works.
Yeah.
That's how it usually works, bro. Once like oh, I don't know anything about it. Like once you know somebody or it kind of checks on board, they're like, hey, they know everything.
That would be me. I will research
every stat. Like, oh, did you know? Well, I mean, it's amazing.
My dad created a website because, again, he's very technologically savvy. And again, this is back in the 90s, right? And well, this would have been 2000. We go to the Rose Bowl, 2001, I guess, technically. And, he's got my dog guessing the winners of each week's games in the Big Ten by putting names of like Michigan State and Wisconsin on like a dog bone and then throwing them to him.
Like, yeah. His own college game day.
Yeah. What the heck is happening? Right. So, it was wild, but, leading up to the Rose Bowl, we had a string. We went to 4 straight bowl games. We went to the Alamo Bowl 2 years in a row. Then we went to the Outback, and then we ended up in the Rose Bowl. And I got to tell you, each one of those moments when the pressure was at its height, right? When everything was on the line, from one year to the next, like you make it to a bowl game one year, and then you're lucky enough to do it the next year, but things always seem to ratchet up, right? And I think that kind of pressure, being thrown into that kind of a fire, playing in the Big Ten, playing for a championship, playing for a bowl game win, teaches you a lot if you're fortunate enough to be in those.
Yeah. Why does it change? Does it change because you're making great, because you're actually progressing in school, like from sophomore to junior to senior? It's got to make it feel different too, right? Because at a different level, you feel different, you're growing. Does that have anything? I never experienced that, but it seems like it'd come into play a little bit.
I think that's
you know what I'm talking about? Like in each,
yeah.
Especially with the bowl games at the end of it, or does each season recycle?
Well, every season is like almost starting over again in terms of like
they make you feel like that, right? They make you feel like that on purpose.
No doubt. And part of it is rightfully so, right? Because you never have, especially in the National Football League, you'll have at least 40% of the guys that were there the year before are gone. Yeah. So you could almost say half in a lot of the locker rooms around the league because of coaching changes and the carousel that is the NFL with all that stuff.
2 years, maybe every 2 years it changes, probably.
Well, yeah, with coaches and then but
even I'm talking about with everything cycling. That's a military career. Same thing.
Yeah.
You're in a uniform and you either cycle to a different command or your head shed cycles.
Yep.
I looked at it like that too. You said that, but that's pretty squared away. And I noticed with the coaches, the best way I ever heard it explained, and this came from a guy who was a straight up killer. I mean, this guy was scary to the day. I can't even believe it. He's like, I was like, how do you deal with everyone screaming at you? He's like, oh, it's just my inner voice to put in some human form.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, it's just yelling at me because it can't hurt me, because most everybody, he was way past the fear thing when it came to another human. So he's like, anybody screaming at me or something, especially if I messed up, because you're always harder on yourself. He's like, if I really want to be hard on myself, I'll put it in human form and let it yell at me. And he's like, and I was like, that's a pretty good way of looking at it, man. Roger that. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I never forgot that.
Okay, so then you go to the Patriots. Do you go straight to the Patriots after college?
I did, yeah.
What round you come in?
All right, so we get done with the Rose Bowl. I made a little stop in Vegas before I made it back to the Midwest.
Good for you. It's all right. It happens. There's a spot there. There's out in the town. Everyone breaks down. Cool, man.
Which, by the way, is where you and I, the only time I've ever met you, we were in Vegas.
Man, I've met this dude. I was like, I know I've met him.
No doubt. I was with Willie and maybe Rochi was there too. I can't remember who all was there. I think it was the SHOT Show. We were at some bar somewhere in the back with a whole bunch of guys, and it was a night to remember.
Oh, how funny.
I told you, I met that dude. I was like,
wait, was that at the restaurant that had the steak on the rocks?
I think it may have been. Yeah, it may have been. And I can tell you this. I can tell you
dinner. Yeah.
I can tell you one other thing. And you had a couple of your guys that you serve with, and you guys were cutting up, telling some great stories. It was a lot of fun. But the one thing that really stands out to me as it relates to you is Willie and Jep and Adam and I and a number of other folks go with General Dempsey on a USO tour. And we are on a C-130 coming in pretty aggressively on a descent to land in Bagram, right? And we are watching your movie that you somehow pirated to Willie on the plane as we're coming into land there. And I'll never forget how odd it was that was like the scenario. Like that's where I first saw the film, was on a C-130 coming in to land in Bagram as we were finishing the movie.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's doing it the real IMAX way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, because once the ramp dropped and you're in there, that smell.
Yeah.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
The first thing they told us, they said, if you're here for about a week, you will have ingested a Snicker-sized piece of poo.
Ew.
Because all they do is burn poo.
They gave you the inside gouge. I wasn't going to go that far with it, but yeah, okay, so that happens, but don't worry about it. Okay. We're past that.
Okay,
you made it. No,
back to Vegas. You go Rose Bowl. You have a little stop in Vegas and have fun.
Wait, one question: Outback Bowl. Did y'all play Clemson?
Outback Bowl. We played. We played Georgia.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Richard Seymour was there. Stroud. They had a hell of a defensive line at that point. That was a wild game.
All right. So draft time comes in. What year is it?
Yep. So 2001, I'm at the Neon Cactus, my favorite watering hole in West Lafayette. We're sitting there waiting for, this draft thing to unfold. It's the end of the first round. I get a call from Scott Pioli, the head of player personnel for the Patriots, and he says, hey, stay by your phone. I think we're going to take you here. We got a pick coming up. And again, I've never seen a draft in my life, and I'm having a good time. So I was just nodding my head and saying, yes, sir. And sounds great. And about 5 minutes later, and I have no idea what pick they have, by the way. So they're on pick like 34, 35, whatever it is, right?
So they're not telling you anything. Kind of talk about that a little bit, because I spent some time with the kids that are going through that now, and I'm like, man, it's got to be a feeling like no other. I mean, you're actually waiting. It's huge, and everyone's watching. It's a complete dynamic that y'all are unique to have. I mean, no one else has that.
Well, you have an agent that's telling you, hey, here's the people I'm talking to. Here's what I think is going to, unfold. I think this team's going to want you. This team may leapfrog them because they really like you as well. So, we'll have to see what happens with trades and how they do things. But these are the teams we're looking at, and here's where their picks are currently. So you kind of, your agent tells you what he thinks is going to happen. But
were you lucky enough to get a Jerry Maguire, or who'd you get strapped up with?
Man, I was really lucky. Yeah, I had a gym.
Yeah, he's all right, man.
I had a gym. He was the best, man, and I love this guy, and he was my agent my entire career. So, I'm sitting in this bar. Brees is the first pick of the second round, so he's the 33rd pick in the draft, right? We're celebrating his, trip to San Diego and high-fiving him, and everything's great, and we're all sitting around. I get the call from Scott Pioli, and then after I hang up with him, about 5 minutes later, I get a call from a guy from the Jets, and this guy's telling me, hey, man, we're taking you. We got a pick coming up. It was like pick number, 49. And the Patriots traded up. Well, as I'm talking to him, I get a call from Scott again, and he goes, hey, who are you talking to on the other line? And I remember thinking, like, how the hell does he know I'm talking to somebody?
Yeah, they know everything.
And I said, I'm talking to this guy from the Jets, and he goes, well, hang up with him because we're going to take you ahead of them. So the Jets had 49th pick. They traded up and got the 48th, and they drafted me. And I'll never forget, he said, hey, you're going to go from blocking for one Drew to another, meaning, Drew Brees is my quarterback. So now at least I know the New England Patriots have a quarterback named Drew. Other than that, I didn't have a clue. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what state the Patriots played in. So
Drew Bledsoe. I mean, who?
Yeah, Drew Bledsoe. Yeah.
That was.
By the way, $10 million a year for 10 years. It was like the largest contract in the NFL at the time, and I have no idea who this joker is. And by the way, he was a phenomenal teammate and he was a joker. This guy was funny.
That's awesome. So,
so
I have to say, in your NFL career, because you had a pretty phenomenal one, Super Bowls and all of that, which, by the way, I went to one of the Super Bowls. It was in Arizona.
Oh, not a good one. Yeah.
Don't remember who y'all
Against
played.
the Giants, I believe.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So I was at
we got one better for you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think I said this on the email. Hunter went to your camp that you would host in
Football
Boston.
camp way back in the day.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Were you at oh man. Were you at Bryant or were you at Wheaton?
Wow.
On the
To
spot.
be honest, I don't really remember.
I was 8, and I don't remember.
I was probably 8 years old. I just flew into Boston and went from there.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
One of our friends lived up there and said, hey, there's this football camp going on. It's by Matt Light, and he won the Super Bowl and blah, 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 like all this. And I was like, I'll pay for it. I'm not going up there. I didn't have to go up there. I just flew him, and he did all of that.
Must not have worked out very well. He didn't play football. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
What are we talking about here? Look at him. He's in here with me. Matter of fact, he became a baseball player.
Yeah.
Hey, I did both.
No, I know. I'm just mad. It's awesome. Yeah, man. He played football till he got, but yeah.
But tell us a little highlight of your NFL career.
Gosh, here I am. I as my offensive line coach would say, Light, you don't know if the ball's pumped or stuffed. He's like, you have no idea what you're doing, but we're going to get you.
Is there a difference?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, ask Brady, because I don't think he really knows how to fill one up either, apparently. But no, that's terrible.
All right, man. It's great.
I love you, Tommy. I love you. So, I think for me, when I think about my career, I go back to that first season. Here we were, the New England Patriots. We had the worst stadium. It was worse than a lot of high schools in Ohio. There were rats running across our feet.
When you showed up, is that true? So it's kind of like out of a damn movie.
Oh, no doubt.
You walk in, everything's busted up. You're gonna have to rebuild something from nothing. That's
listen,
because most people don't know now after what y'all built and what y'all did.
Yeah,
I mean, they just don't know what it was like back in 01. Hell, everything changed for us in 2001. Now that I'm thinking about it, we all came online.
Man, that's a fact. And I got to tell you, the kids today, they're growing up here in New England, and if they're 20 years old, the only thing they know is winning championships.
Yeah,
and that's all they know. I mean, I don't care if it's the Red Sox or the Bruins or the Patriots or Celtics, whatever it may be. They're used to the success. But when I got here, it was the old school, grizzled, hardcore New Englanders that loved the team but didn't have any expectations as it relates to winning. I mean, I'm dead serious. They were there.
That's a real thing.
Oh, no doubt. They were. I mean, look, they're my people. I love our fans.
I can say this. They're my damn people.
They are my people.
Yeah.
So I come in and I'm a little kind of taken aback. I mean, the facilities were way worse than what we had at Purdue. And again, there's a lot of high schools that have better facilities. And I'm thinking, woof, we're in trouble. And then we get into the practices. And it's Bill Belichick at his finest back when, I mean, we damn near practice 3 times a day. And we're down at Bryant College. It's hot. It's miserable. And it's literally get it on every day, all day. Guys are dropping like flies. They're trying to get me to play the right side. I mean, it was a tough camp. Battled a little injury, but then I end up making it into the season, but week 1, and we're playing in Cincinnati, which is about 2 hours from where I grew up, and I got all my family coming down, and I get stuck the night before the game on a bridge crossing the Ohio River, and I'm late to our team meeting the night before the game.
Good for you. Never forget that. You'll never forget it.
You want to talk about
feel like?
Oh, I literally knew I was going to be done. I knew I was going to be cut, and because that's the atmosphere, right?
Oh, he ran it like that. He ran it like that. Coach ran it like that.
He's hardcore.
Oof, all the way, man. If you're overweight, there's a chance that you may get cut because there's a weight on everyone.
Is he a yeller? Or is he like a disappointed looker?
He's the opposite of what you think it's going to be every time.
Oh,
like when you think he's going to tear you apart.
Yeah.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Those are the professionals. That's a gift from God. Those guys that can hit you from the opposite angle. Yeah.
That's a fact. Yeah. So he doesn't say a word to me that night. My offensive line coach, he let me have it. And then we go to the stadium the next day, have our pregame meal, have our meeting, go to the stadium. And as I'm going out, we had gone out for warmups. And now we have this like little lag period between coming back into the locker room and going out for the start of the game.
Are you sweating this, or are you just thinking it's over?
No. At this point, I'm like, okay, I'm going. I mean, this is it. No, by the way, I didn't practice hardly at all in training camp because I had a severe high ankle, and Bill wanted me to play the right tackle. And dude, I couldn't play right tackle. I mean, you might as well ask me to be a DB. I mean, left tackle was my position. I could move to the left, but doing it on the right was a foreign. That was not going to happen. So he switches me back over, and I practiced maybe 3 days before the game. And that's all I practiced for basically the entire training camp. And now I got to start. So I was already, and my asshole was tight, buddy. I mean, I was clinched.
Yeah, I bet. That's what I was asking. I was like, hey man, what's that feel? I was like, fucker factor.
I've got my church down here with a bus. Like, I mean, half my town. I mean, you could have robbed Greenville, Ohio, and no one would have stopped you.
Everything was closed. Everyone was here. Yeah.
It was crazy. And so now
this is a script to a movie, right?
Yeah.
That we're playing that right now, man, because it's brilliant. Go ahead.
So now I'm in there, and we have this little lag period between, going out for the start of the game. We've already done warm-ups, and Bill walks over to me, and he's like, all right, look, I mean, I'm not going to start. I mean, you can't even come to the night before the meeting. I mean, what the fuck? And this is how Bill talks, right? It's like very choppy. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And he goes, so you just sit on the bench and watch what professionals do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got benched. And then it's like, what is my family going to think? Oh my, this is terrible. So I sat on the bench all the way for the first quarter, second quarter. We go in at halftime and Bill walks over to me. And by the way, we're not playing well. I mean, we're basically doing what the Patriots do. We're playing pretty crappy. And at halftime, Bill walks up to me and says, all right, get yourself ready to go. You're in. And I'm like, by the way, that's 1,000 times worse. Like you've been sitting on the sideline. You're cold. Your engine is not even close to being warm. You've already told yourself you're not playing in the game. And in a little way, I may have even been a little thankful because I wasn't technically.
Oh, sure. And then the whole time you're over there, all you're doing is beating yourself up. So, I mean, it's not like you have a positive motivation in there in any capacity.
And then it was like, all right, kids, you're up. And I went out there for the second half. And I promise you, if I went back and watched that film right now, I'd probably throw up. It was probably one of the worst games a left tackle's ever been involved in. But I survived it. And then, look, to fast forward, right, we then had 9/11 during that season. Obviously, that was that, like everyone, that's a moment you won't ever forget. I was in the training room getting treatment. There was one TV in the stadium, period. That was the only TV, and it was in the training room. And I remember that happened. I remember going home, and then I remember the fallout from that. We also lost our quarterback coach, Dick Rabine, died in training camp. And so there's all this adversity and all this stuff, and I'm a rookie and I don't know anything, and battled some injury too, tore up my shoulder pretty bad, had to wear this stupid cast. And then the next thing we know, we made the playoffs. And then we have the Oakland Raider game, the Snow Bowl and the Snow Angel with Lonnie Paxton and all this stuff. And it was crazy. And now we're in the Super Bowl. And the thing that stands out the most to me is seeing my pregnant wife, Susie, my parents, my other friends and family members that came up on that wall and trying to get them over the wall to celebrate with us on the field. And we had just won a world championship. I mean, it was overwhelming. It was surreal. It was wild. I mean, you can't write something like that, but you're blessed to be a part of it.
That's awesome.
So I've heard a couple of people. I was watching a documentary, matter of fact, last night with it was Pumping Iron, and it was with Lou and Arnold and a lot of the old timers look back. They're like, hey, I wish I could have. If I could go back and change anything, it'd be this. I wish I would have had a good time, like during the whole moment. And I never thought about it like that. And because when we're in the moment, it's like when you're in the game, you're playing the game. It's almost like, hey, can you be a fan while you're playing? Can you imagine what that would feel like? It's almost be impossible to do it, though.
Alrighty, summer adventurers, buckle up because I'm about to unveil the next secret weapon for conquering those scorching days and endless travel madness. Say hello to Next Evo Naturals CBD, the sizzling hot key to keeping your wellness game strong all summer long. Picture this, your sleep schedule is on a roller coaster. Travel days are turning your routines upside down, and the stress is the name of the game. But fear not, because Next Evo's Smart Sorb technology is here to the rescue. It's like CBD's Turbo Boost, absorbing 4 times better than regular oil. Because who wants a mismatch when you can have a wellness match made in heaven? I've got a story to share, my friends. Next Evo Naturals swept me off my feet with their CBD magic. Stress? Checked. Sleep? Forget about it. And they've even got the science to back it up. Not 1, not 2, but 4 clinical trials proving their wellness prowess, all backed by medical professionals. Are you ready to unleash the power of Next Evo Naturals? Head over to nextevo.com/TNQ and explore an explosive 25% off your purchase. Oh, and did I mention they were throwing in a free bottle of premium pure CBD worth $50? That's nextevo.com/TNQ. Let's go dive into this summer of wellness like never before, because with Next Evo, you're not just surviving, you're thriving.
you're dorking out after every move. But just think of the joy that comes with that. That comes with
it's interesting that you bring that up because, one of the things. So my wife thought that I was going to get cut pretty much every day. And now,
I mean, that's, I don't know if that's a whole different podcast altogether, but that's that life is like dying every day. It's like, get up, hey man, I don't know. That's a purgatory. That's a tough in itself.
Yeah. Now, the reason my wife thought that, it's not necessarily because I wasn't very talented, which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, look, I was the smallest left tackle. I'm like not quite 6'5", right at 300. I don't spend any time in a weight room. It just was never my thing. So I'm not strong. I'm sure as hell not fast. I'm not giant like these guys are today, but I like to fight and I take things personal and I want to get better every day. So I survived it. But the reason my wife thought that I was going to get cut every day is because I love to have fun. Yeah. I love it. And I love to bust balls and pull practical jokes. And so I did these to Bill and I did them to other members of the staff because they were funny. And I felt like somebody needed to, all pun intended, keep things light and create a little levity and have some fun, right? You have to.
That's why God named you that. I'm trying to explain. A lot of, these names aren't by accident, right? Some people get stamped. So you can do, when you see it and then they label it and they can say it out loud.
Yeah. Well, so look, I mean, Bill's not the kind of guy that, just loves to have, people joking around all the time. Matter of fact, I think the one thing that drove Bill nuts about me is that I didn't worship the game of football. Most of the guys I played with, they knew they wanted to be a professional football player since the day they were born.
Yeah.
And Bill loves football guys. He loves the guys that eat, sleep, and breathe it. And then there was me. The minute I left, I was the first guy off the field in every game that I played in. And the reason wasn't to go get treatment and make myself better and watch film. I wanted to be the first guy at the bar. I wanted to greet everyone as they came in. I mean, I had the ability to shut off football. If I wasn't in that facility, football wasn't anywhere in my vocabulary. It wasn't in my thought process. And that was just me. I'm not saying that's how you should do it. Matter of fact, I probably could have been a better player had I.
No. Okay, so I got that brings up a question then. Because a lot of us, the guys I run around in my crew, I love football. I love watching it. But then there's the athletes. And the athletes are the ones that eat that up. And I mean, they live it, breathe it, and it's all they're about. But then when they're not playing it. And then you got the guys who, like you're talking about, he's like, hey, man, when the game's on, it's on. But when it's not on and I'm doing something else, I'm doing something else. Those are more like minds, right? They're the spirit.
Yeah.
I was like, they're different men are cut from different cloths, and then they act differently in different situations, but it doesn't mean we can't play together. But those coaches it's interesting to be in a community when you're the only one that's not like that. Mm-hmm. It's like being the sober guy at the bar.
Yes.
It's like everybody wants you there. Yeah, all things considered, right? I get what you're saying.
Awesome.
Yeah, so for me, like, again, I look at things differently, and I'm not going to bust anybody's balls if I don't respect them and love them, right? So I never did it. Like, there's a difference, right? There's the guys that did
huge
things.
Difference.
Yeah, there's the guys that did things, and like the guys that would come over and smack you in the nuts. Like, hey, I don't play that game. Like, you smack me in the nuts, I'm going to knock you out. Like we're on, and that's fine if you want to do that stuff, but just don't do that to me. I took a different tact, and one of the ones that I think you'll appreciate is. See, Bill, when you talk about leadership and you talk about how people lead those around them, everybody's techniques, unique to themselves, right? And there's a lot of similarities, but Bill had a way of putting you on the spot that was really, really uncomfortable, right? So
that's the worst. That's the worst. Man. Oh, it's the worst.
So we're in our team meeting room, right? And it's stadium style seating. And you got all the guys that aren't as smart as we are. That's the defense. They're over here. And then you got the offense, really good looking, very intelligent. That we're sitting over here. And there's a divider in the middle. And so, but in a team meeting every morning at like 7:05, we're all sitting in this big auditorium, and Bill would walk in and he'd get to the podium and, all right, look, I mean, here's what we got today. I mean, we're gonna get into offense and then, but he'd always start out typically with what we're not looking for. Like the category of, he called it in the category of what we're not looking for. And he'd read about how some Bengals player got arrested at a strip club. I mean, typically it was a Bengals player. I don't know why, but anyway, back then, and he would go through all this stuff. But one of the things that he did, especially at the beginning of the week, is that he would go through and he would just start asking questions. All right, hey, Brewski, what do we expect the offense to be doing when they're running this formation? Oh, coach, we're looking for the deep end or the slant and blah, blah, blah. Okay, Brady, we're in 3rd and long. We're in the red zone. What do we expect them to line up in? Oh, coach, they're going to be in, cover 2 with the drop down, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, And if you didn't have the answer, he was going to destroy you in front of the entire team, right? So everybody's on pins and needles. And he wants to know, like, about the new opponent that we're getting ready to face. Like, it's a Wednesday morning, right? So one year, I'm listening to this and see the defensive guys are like his children, because he loves the defensive guys. Like the offensive guys, we're just a redheaded stepchild, right? And the defensive guys, they're screwing up. They're not getting any of the questions right. But they're not getting torn up. If I messed up a question, he would just be like, all right, Light, you got all the answers. What are you thinking? So I thought it'd be funny. So I walk in his office, but also let me back up. It's actually a really important aspect of what he does. It holds people accountable. It forces them to watch more film.
Sure.
It gets their minds right, and it keeps us all on edge. And I'm seeing it's kind of degraded this year in particular. Things were starting to go downhill a little bit. So I walk in his office, and I have this great idea. Now, by the way, I don't ever want to walk in his office, but I couldn't help myself. So I walk in, and I'm like, "Hey, coach," and he's sitting in his office. He's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "Hey, coach, I have this idea. What if when you ask questions, you ask me like 3 questions in a row that nobody would know? Tommy wouldn't know nothing. I'll rattle them off like, lickety split, and it'll teach these guys they better know their stuff, and it'll get them on point. Because, hey, by the way,
great idea.
Yeah, I'm typically asleep in every meeting. Now, only the offensive guys know this. I have like self-induced narcolepsy. And if I'm not actively participating, it's why I can't shut up right now.
It's tough to have that. It's tough to have that, man. I get it. It's tough.
Yeah. So I'm saying this to him, and he's just looking at me. And that's the other thing Bill did really good. He forces you to have diarrhea of the mouth, because you'll say something like, "Hey, coach, can I go to so-and-so?" Nothing. He's just looking at you. And then you're like, "Oh, you know what, coach? I didn't even want to go there anyway. I'm good." And you're like, "Wait, why did I say that? I actually wanted to go there, but
I didn't bring it up. Is it even a thing? I don't even know why in the hell I was thinking about it."
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, coach. I didn't even mean to stand here in front of you. Sorry. Okay, so
something.
Yeah. So I say this to him, and he's just looking at me, and I'm like, "All right, well," and I love awkward moments. I'm like, "Well, there's that. Okay, see you, coach." And I walk out. Now I don't think anything of it. A week later, I'm walking in, and it's like a Wednesday, and Wednesday's a big install day. Better know the opponent, right? We had Monday for film study on the opponent that we just played on Sunday. Tuesday's our one day off, but you're going in anyway. Wednesday, you better know what the heck's going to happen. And I walk in, and his assistant Bear's like, "Hey, Bill wants to see you." And I'm like, "Oh shit. Oh man, like what did I do?" And I walk in there, and he's like, "All right, look, I'll ask you about, 3rd down, and you can talk about, what happens when they're in this formation, and then I'll go to the, the red zone, and then I'll ask you about their defensive coordinator, and blah, blah." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "But coach, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. Like, I need the actual answers."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh." So I literally get a pen, and I'm writing all these answers on my hand, right? And he's like, "Yeah, we'll have some fun," right? So we go in there, and he goes through his stuff, and he's drilling some people, and he's like, "All right, Light, since you got all the answers, tell me what they do on this." And I'm like, "The square root of isosceles triangle is equal to the above." It's like right off the top of my head. And I remember and I sit in the very back so I can't sleep. Everybody turns around, and they're looking, and they're like, "What the hell? How does Light know all of this?" Right? But it worked. And I never said anything different. I wasn't like, "Oh man, that was just coach and I having fun." I leave the meeting room.
Kept it.
Oh yeah. I'm like, "Hey man, you guys got to get in the film room, dude. You got to know your stuff, man. This is a big week."
That's like
awesome.
that's Will Ferrell from the old school, right? Just kind of stepping in there in the debate. I'll tell you what I got.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so we had fun. That's my. I also shocked Bill a number of times. I shocked, we had a lot of fun back in the day. Believe it or not.
Pranking there's a light humor about it that isn't necessary.
So I'm having to go through the transition now of going from being around guys football players and Navy, all of us. It doesn't matter the uniform you're wearing in our generation. It's extreme. If I was the way I was, I know you had to be the way you are for a reason. We were built that way. So now that I have the young ones online, trying to prank them, I'm trying to find that happy balance. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, civilians don't take it as well sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I did see one prank that involved a private plane, law enforcement, and other things like that. What exactly did that entail? And who was it with?
You saw the one that I did?
I saw it written down on your bio, actually.
Okay, I was gonna say, because I don't let anything out. And I got a little nervous there. So yeah, so one time I had a buddy of mine, and we were gonna go on a hunt out in Utah, and he has his own plane, and he was gonna be gracious enough to swing into Chicago right after Thanksgiving, where my wife grew up just south of Chicago. And she puts up with a lot with me, and she said, listen, we're doing Thanksgiving, but if you want to leave after Thanksgiving, you can. So my buddy flies in, lands at an FBO there in near Midway, and when he gets in, TSA agent boards the plane, tells him that there's a random spot check being done, a lot of traffic. We need to have you guys come off the plane. It'll only take a few minutes. We'll get you right back in. Now, look, if you're a billionaire or you have a private jet, you don't ever get taken off your plane. That's just not something that happens. But this is a random spot check, so seemed like it all, made sense. And they bring him into a little tiny hangar, and that's when all hell broke loose, man. DEA agent came in.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, they found drugs and guns. Oh yeah, they had him handcuffed on their knees up against the wall.
Oh my
It was good. Yeah,
because everybody does something. And even if it's a little thing, even if it's like, man, how do they even know that I left the lights on when I was supposed to, or whatever? And especially when the brass starts showing up. How long did you plan that?
Oh, it took a long. I'm gonna tell you. Look, getting the pilot to go in on it, that wasn't easy, because that's his livelihood, and he doesn't want to lose his job. The FBO didn't want anything to do with it, but we convinced them that it was a great idea. But the thing that I did not account for, I thought it'd be really easy just to go online and maybe hit up Amazon and get a DEA and TSA jacket, but they don't just hand those out. I mean, I don't know why I thought it was like a costume or something, like Halloween. Everybody goes to the DEA agent. Nope, that's not the case. So probably the hardest part of it was trying to get that done like mere days before this was all going to take place. But I promise you, the video itself is one of the most priceless things I had. And this came to me. I woke up one morning and I said, oh, I'm doing this. I made the DEA agent ask one of the guys to reach into his left pocket, and he's pointing at his right hand, and pull out the contents of what's in that pocket. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I knew it would be funny. And it's honestly the thing that makes me laugh the hardest. Try reaching into your left pocket with your right hand if it's a jacket. and by the way, he struggled mightily, but he did it.
Now I know you're friends with LaRoche and Willie, because they are all major pranksters.
Total idiots. Total
so
idiots.
Funny. Okay, with all of the Super Bowls that you participated in, was there one that was more challenging that you'll never forget, like a moment in time that was a life lesson that you'll just never forget?
Yeah, I mean they're all nuanced, right? Like I tell kids all the time that we work with, look, I've won and lost every way you can win and lose in the National Football League. I've made the playoffs, not made it. Won the first round, lost it. Won the second round, lost it. Won the third round, lost it. Won the Super Bowl and lost it, not once but twice, right? So I was blessed to play in 5. They were all very different, but I always go back to that first one. The first one, and the pressure and the feeling. I mean, Look, I never felt like I deserved to be out there. I had never had a game that I looked at in my career and said, I kicked ass, right? I ruled the day at left tackle on that game. Never once had that. So I just felt blessed to just be a part of an organization, to be a part of a team. And I always said this, in the biggest moments, the way that I would calm myself is I would tell myself, hey, man, you've done everything you can do to prepare and get yourself ready. right? I could look in the mirror and say that. And the reason I could say that is because I wasn't a guy that would take practices off. Matter of fact, I wanted every practice rep that we did throughout the week, because if I didn't have it, I was not going to go into the game feeling confident. So
what kept that attitude? What gives you that attitude?
I think
because on the hard days, that there's a lot of stuff that goes away. And there's always like, hey man, what is this? Ultimately, it's like, hey man, this is what you were made for.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I don't know. I mean, I know I can always do it better. I guess that goes for anything, right? I know I can always do it better, and I never ever wanted to be the kind of person that said like, oh, I got this is easy, or this is, you know, I rule. Like I don't know. Like I always felt like that was setting myself up for failure. It may be the case. I mean, I've had games where I played pretty damn well, but it was never even close to perfect, right? So
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think honestly it goes back to, again, like how I was brought up. You know, the people that I was around. I mean, nobody was braggadocious. You know, I mean, I may have had a swagger, but I wasn't, I wasn't talking about how great I was ever. So, you know, and I think that humility served me well because it forced me to do it. I mean, look, I practice the little things every single day in practice. Always.
Oh, attention to detail then.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what is it that got you? Because for me, suiting up, there was something that went into when I was putting my uniform on that the whole something changed on me. The air changed, the way I thought about it. And right before it would happen, I would get eager to go get into my suit, whether I was going underwater or anything, from a kid all the way through an adult. And the actions on the ground, that was something too. But man, that when it was suiting up time, I really got into that. Was there something like that happens for you? Like what brought you in there? Was it being around the guys when you walked in, or was it stepping onto the field for the first time, like your first foot on the field, or the first pass, or the first block? What was it that you like to eat on?
Man, I loved the opportunity to go out and prove that I had it. That's what I loved. I loved the opportunity to go out and prove that I deserved to be on that team, right? And I think for me, again, I talk about joking around, and I joked around a lot of practice and other things, but when we were actually out there competing, I had laser focus, and I love that, right? I love to be laser focused, but
that's good.
It felt great, man. I knew what my purpose was. I knew what my job was. I knew that, you know, I have an opportunity to do it better now than I did then. And I love that. And when it was game day, I wouldn't talk to anyone. I would go into it. I became a different person, man. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. I had no joking in me. I didn't want to joke. I didn't even want to talk to my family. And most times I wouldn't talk to my family. I wouldn't go home if we were playing a night game. I just sit in the hotel room. I had to put myself into character, I guess you could call it. And but the minute that game was over, man, it was back to the real world.
Sure, yeah.
Because every day you work harder and harder and harder, and you just keep trying to prove yourself.
Well, nothing feels better to a man is when you know your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't thought about it. You said, I was like, when I was in too, in the uniform, when you have a uniform on and you know exactly in life, the universe has your ass right there for that purpose to do that job. You got paid for it, and people cheering you on doing it. That's another thing. Like when you strap on the uniform in football and military, and you actually have people, there's a reward that comes with that. It's when your fellow Americans come like, hey, great job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have any idea who they are, but they know what you do kind of thing. There's a hidden something in that world that we don't ever talk about. And you're doing something, there's a freedom. Like your independence, when you're moving around, when you're not playing the game, there's a freedom too that you have. It's like a confidence. Like, oh, I'm this. And that's why I can go do this.
Hey, you'll like this. So I tell kids a lot, and I always refer to kids because I speak to kids a lot, and we work with kids through the foundation, and I love to tell them this because it's so true. It's so true about my life, and it's so true about how I see things. But you know, when you're getting recruited, and we'll go back to like draft day, right? Like we used to put up Brady's draft day picture because they bring you in when you're doing the combine and they put you through all these things. They measure how wide it is from your thumb to your pinky. They make you run the shuttle, the 40-yard, all this stuff. But one of the worst things is they make you stand there with a shirt off. And then we would get these photos of guys and we'd blow them up like poster size and we'd put them throughout the locker room, right? Brady's was terrible. It was like the most soft looking body you could imagine, right? And of a little kid just standing there like, hey. And so
happy.
If you look, it's awesome. But if you look at what they say, like a Mel Kiper, right? He's going to do a report. And let's say he's doing reports on offensive linemen. A report that is really good would sound something like this. He's a very explosive player, good short space quickness, has great knee bending, good hips, knows how to engage and derive power, good setter, fast off the ball, good at pulling. But there's things that they say about offensive linemen when they're grading them, right? You know what they said about me? And I'm dead serious about this. There was one comment that was like, oh, okay, he's highly coachable. I mean, I didn't have like, he's explosive, he's strong, he's really big, good wingspan, none of that stuff. All they said was this guy is highly coachable. And honestly, I don't disagree.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Can't argue with that though. You just can't argue.
But I liked it though. To your point, Marcus, like and this is almost, I could talk out of both sides of my mouth, I guess, on this one, but there is a comfort in having somebody tell you what to do. There really is, like I don't like to admit that sometimes because I am a free thinker and a free spirit and I'm very independent, but man, it's pretty cool when you have somebody directing you on what you need to do. And then you see the fruits of that labor and there's comfort, man. That's all I can say about it.
All right, you fitness firecrackers, listen up because we're about to ignite your workout game with a twist that'll have you sweating bullets, Fitbod style. But first, let's spill the tea. How's your fitness journey been this year? Personal record shattered? Are you reaching your goals? Let's dive into this fitness world where smart technology is the new superstar. Remember the days of old paper maps? Yeah, well, they're ancient history now, all thanks to Google. And guess what? Fitbod is that same comparison when it comes to traditional workouts. Brace yourself because Fitbod's AI technology is an absolute game changer. It's like a sculptor crafting your workouts to perfection, tailored to your goals, your experience, and even the equipment that you've got on hand. I'm on the road a lot, so my favorite part about Fitbod is how I can switch up the settings to give me workouts using only the equipment that's in front of me, whether that be my full gym back at home, or if I'm in the middle of nowhere with zero equipment at all. It doesn't matter what you have, Fitbod will find a way to kick your butt. It's been my jet set secret weapon. So what do you say? Are you ready to level up those sweat sessions? Buckle up because Fitbod has got your back and your biceps. Go check out fitbod.me/TNQ and snag a cool 20% off your subscription. That's fitbod.me/TNQ. Let's make this summer a season of unstoppable gains.
Yeah, we call them the other guys.
Yeah,
in every community, in every world, it exists. There's a flow, an ebb and a flow, and guys will in football, baseball, doesn't matter, sports, military. You got them. There's the guys you know who they are right away. Then there's the guys that you never see.
Yeah.
I mean, never see them. Don't even know their name or anything like that. Man, but if you remove one of them, though, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
Like, man, they're just happy to be there, guys. Just that freaking happy to be there, guys, man.
We've taken a lot of your time, but I do want to mention quickly about your foundation. How did you and your wife start that, and what's your mission?
So we launched the Light Foundation in 2002 officially. So coming off that first season, the Super Bowl win, and looking at it saying, well, I thought my grandmother coined this phrase, but to whom much is given, much is required. I found out she didn't. That wasn't her writings, but shocker. I knew that there's no reason I should have been paid as much as I was paid that year to play a game. And now, okay, what are you going to do with that? And that was really the focus. And for me, I come from a family of educators. My mom taught music for 35 years. My dad taught at a college level and ran all these, did all this stuff and loves to educate. And I said, okay, I want to work with young people and I want to instill in them the values that got me to where I am today. So let's do it. And you know how easy it was to go out and ask people to support something, Super Bowl. I mean, and then, we won 3 of them in 4 years. And I rode the wave of that success to help form the base, and the foundation of the Light Foundation. And our work is simple. We want to impact the lives of young people by teaching them how to be real and putting real people in their lives that really hold them accountable and treat them like real people, not treat them like, to try to coddle them, but force them to be real. And real as an acronym for us is responsible, ethical, accountable leaders. And they don't have to be the president of the United States. They don't have to be the president of a company, but they're going to be asked to lead somewhere, somehow, whether it's their family or in their friend group or in a decision tree that hits them at some point in life. And so we do a number of different things. It's all, a lot of it's outdoor based. We do have one football camp. It's a free camp. We have about 300 to 400 kids every year, and it's a lot of fun, but that's about the only football thing we do. Most of what we do is teaching these kids through our leadership academy how to look people in the eye, say thank you, be respectful, show up on time, work really hard. And I'll tell you, Marcus, one of the things that blew my mind is last year I brought in a couple of guys, military guys that acted as cadres, and they were cadres for an overnight challenge course that we created, right? And this challenge course, I had no idea how impactful it was going to be in the lives of these young men. And they come, and in this particular camp, they came from all over the country. It's something we've been doing for the last 17 years. And boy, you talk about a life-changing experience and pushing kids almost past the breaking point, and I tell you, the reason I bring that one up is because people like to draw these analogies between, or this connection between football and the military. And I agree with a lot of it. I don't agree with the idea that, guys are saying, hey man, we're going to war today. We're battling. Like, no, you're not. You're playing a game, right? There's a clear difference. So let's say it the way it needs to be said. The things that I think are comparable is how you work within a team, what the expectations are, how they hold you accountable, how they push you outside your comfort zone. Those things I think are similarities in the sports world and what the military does. But my goodness, the men that I have been able to meet, like yourself, and the leadership qualities and the ways that you can impact young people is off the charts. There's immediate buy-in. If you walk into a room of kids that we have in our camp, they may not know your story, but they see it, and there is no BS. Like, you're the real, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's there are no qualifiers needed for people that come from a particular background, or as Liam Neeson would say, have a particular set of skills, right?
Oh yeah.
So
I've acquired a long career. So I agree with you. The one thing I found ironic is you were saying you didn't earn that paycheck of being a Patriot. Well, you're a Patriot and you're earning it now. Like, you just got it in the beginning, because giving back, bro. I mean, that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to have fun up in front. The football captures it. The warrior spirit. So what I figured out about that is when you hear those guys talking about it's a war, it's a battle, that's their warrior. They have a warrior spirit inside them. Yeah. I could take that football and throw a blade or a rifle in your hand. If we didn't have that, like if all of us, and it's the best way to identify y'all too. I mean, imagine if we got paid to be the best soldier, if America was set up that way. You guys would definitely be doing this instead of playing the game. Because most of the time it's completely different, and we get to play. But we have the sports, so our alphas don't kill each other. Like, that's how sport had to come online, is because after we subdued the earth, we started killing each other. Just for fun, right? So they're like, hey man, let's make a game. We got to do something. And then we just kept evolving, because every type of men, something entertains them differently.
Well, and
But-
sports get y'all through so many
Oh, it's so important,
dark times.
man. It's so
I mean,
important.
Yeah.
You're just along with your boys. If you can't speak, you get the hit, and that's a guy thing. It's in our DNA code. It's how we survive down here. If that wasn't the case, it'd have been bred out of us generations ago. But that's what we get to see.
Hey, and speaking of that, it's one of the things that worries me the most right now when I think about sports, right? I've been on record saying this, and honestly, I've been torn on whether I should speak up about this, but they've changed the game of football. They've changed sports in general in a lot of ways, but man, they don't celebrate the kind of things that a lot of these young men need that are playing a game of football, right? Yeah. I mean, they need an outlet. They need to be able to get rid of some of their frustrations. And I'm not saying that's the only reason you play the game of football, but for a lot of young men, and I'll speak personally, like it was that outlet for me.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. We
Yeah.
just talked about that. That's why it came on. If you don't give us a way to do that, we'll start hurting people.
Mm-hmm.
It will explode. I mean, that's why it's in there. I mean, you can't. And we know that because we're talking about it. It's actually in us. I mean, it's a DNA thing too, man. Just that survival thing. It's got to go somewhere, especially.
Yeah, you have to embrace it within discipline.
Yeah, discipline.
And let it out. I mean, that's how you do it.
But they changed the game of football that they came up with that to where we can actually vent that aggression where we don't kill each other, almost to the border, to the line. I mean, hell, we do die in it. Guys do get hurt. That's
no doubt.
It's a freaking man's game.
But today in the game, these guys don't even have the ability to train properly. Everything changed after the 2011 CBA, and the idea was we have to make the game safer. And in a lot of ways, we did need to make the game safer. Sure. Whether it was the rate of concussion and all the head trauma stuff, or just soft tissue stuff, and just being smarter about how we play the game of football. But they went completely overboard in that approach. And today, the game is less safe from a rate of injury than it's ever been. And on paper, you'd say that'd be impossible, right? Because they don't hit half as much as we used to. After week 3, I don't think they put pads on at all unless they're playing on Sunday. So, I think there's a lot of things that need to be discussed openly. I think as long as we have, things that are propping up the game in terms of the revenue generation, until the revenue gets impacted, I don't think things will change the way they should.
That's human. That's might be American nature. How that knee-jerk reaction, we go as far as we can the opposite direction to pick up the good stuff, and it should settle back in. I mean, we do that.
And we need it to. We need it to for those kids that need the game of football, right? Like, I don't want to see football waver or fall off, because that's going to impact a lot of other people that really need it.
What a great country. And I think it identifies us as a great country that someone can make a living playing a sport, and not just any sport. I'm talking about the good ones like basketball, tennis, and everything. I'm talking about go down the line. You could probably make a living playing pickleball here.
Oh, think
about that.
Too.
I mean, we live in a country where you can play a game for a damn living. I mean, I mean like a real one.
Bowling.
Yeah.
Chess, bowling, everything. And we will pay to watch you do that.
Yeah.
That's a miracle.
I do have a friend whose parents are professional pickleball players.
Oh my gosh.
I knew that though. I knew about them.
They're having kids.
That's unbelievable to me. When you think
so
about
funny.
it's amazing. America is the greatest place on the planet. We can do that.
So how can people support the Light Foundation?
Probably the easiest way is just check us out. Go to mattlight72.com, and you can learn a lot about the programs that we run, the events that we have. We have 2 of our 2 biggest events are coming up. Coming up here in September. September 18th and 19th is our corporate training day, and then our celebrity shootout. The celebrity shootout we've done now, this will be our 19th year. This will be our 4th year for the corporate training day. And we're shooting a lot of guns. We're having a lot of fun. But and we're doing all that in New England, by the way, which they told me, oh, you'll never be able to run an event like that. Well, 19 years later, it's probably the biggest event in New England.
Yeah, that's how you know when someone says that. If you ever hear, that's the magic words. You shouldn't be able. You're not the one for that, or you're not the right. That's how you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, and it's service. Well, look, we'll raise 85% of our fundraising will happen in those 2 days, and give us the ability to continue to do what we do. So, what a blessing to have that kind of support. We've had a ton of support over the years, but man, we're always looking for people to join alongside us, whether it's with their talent, with their resources, with their expertise and their leadership, and we have a lot of that. We have such a phenomenal team that really care about young people. They want to impact their lives, and the best part is they want to impact their lives by walking alongside them and being the example, right? Not being their best friend, not telling them, just whatever they want to hear, but holding them accountable, pushing them past their comfort zone, and seeing the progress along the way. And look, when kids come into our camp, they don't have cell phones. We take all that stuff away. We get real, and we have real conversations with our fireside chats at night. We talk about real topics that affect them on a daily basis. We get them real help when they need it, and we put real people in their path to help them succeed. And honestly, it's the most rewarding thing I've done in life.
So is it a summer camp? What's the length of time that they're doing it?
So we have a lot of different programs. I call it the Field of Dreams approach. We build it. We don't get government support. We earn every penny, which means everybody on our staff knows that we don't go buy water if we can't, if we can get it for free, or we can find another way of doing business. We're very efficient with how we operate, but we do a lot of different things. We got a 500+ acre facility called Chenoweth Trails. We host all of our bigger camps at that facility, and that happens year round. But then we also have our partnership programs, and then our third party groups like, church groups and, Pheasants Forever and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and all these other organizations, schools, cross country teams, bands. They utilize our property. And if you're working with kids, there is no cost to you and your organization. So we support the things that we created from scratch, our programming. We support the things that we partner with other organizations, and then we provide opportunities for other nonprofits that work with kids to host their, camps and their programs.
One last question. Is your dad involved?
Oh, man, I love that. You're the best. So, yes, everyone. So my mom, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my kids, they handle the cooking. My dad handles the camp project. And this year, he taught him how to make an arapuca. He's taught him how to make atlatls. It's all cool stuff. If you're a young man, you get to learn how to make a spear. You get to take a turkey feather and turn it into fletching with sinew, nap your own arrowhead, because my dad's a phenomenal napper.
So these are big time turkey hunter.
My dad is not. I've got a problem with it, though.
That's your thing? You're
Yes,
the turkey hunter? Okay, brother.
That's
We
so
need to go, man, because the last 3 years that I've been turkey hunting, I've gotten just skunked. And I mean, bro, I was scraping. I had turkey porn on the radio. Nothing would bring them in. I mean, I was switching over from the shotgun and bow to the long rifle just to get a target in my sight. I just it's terrible, man. Like
You put a scope on a gobbler. That's a problem.
Hey, man, I was at my wit's end, bro. I didn't have anything on the ground for years.
It was self-defense. Hey, listen, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to come here next spring, bring the whole fam. I don't care. Bring the entourage, whatever you want to do. But you and I are going to go out, and I'm going to go on a limb here. We're going to kill in 3 different states before noon.
All right. I'll hold you to that, man. There's something about them. I'll bring the little ones too. When you're talking about it's all about the kids, I went through that shift myself. I mean, I just did, and it's almost one of those things you feel it. It's like, hey, look, I don't want individually. Yeah, the kids are important, man, but the overall lifestyle that you want to have them in, more peaceful and down to earth, it's important because you can see them losing it, and we're the last generation to have that. Me and you. After 2000, they're all born into it. They don't know the difference. So.
Yeah. Well, we do 2 youth hunts, right? We do a youth hunt in Ohio. We do a youth hunt in Rhode Island. And man, it's phenomenal.
What are y'all going after up in Rhode Island?
Where's it at?
No, what are you after up there?
Turkey hunting. Yeah,
This one's better.
Hey, listen, in the last 2 years, and we typically take 10 to 12 hunters, right? Every kid's tagged out in the first 3 hours.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you know what? Every guide I ever talked to says that. So this is how you know I'm an actual hunter, okay? Because I don't. All right, pods, I'm gonna show up. I'll bring everything that kills.
We're taking
Good,
off
because we'll have fun.
on
Yeah, we'll have fun,
Monday.
man. Yeah.
We're heading up to Maine on Monday to get out of this heat. So we'll be passing. Actually, we land in Boston.
Yeah.
And
I love it
we're
up there,
driving
man.
up.
Hey, I got one question. You can take this out too. Hey, during the Super Bowls when you're playing in the show, was there one player or one play when you looked up and you're like, dude, how the hell did y'all get that done? You don't have to answer it now, man. Just you get back.
No, you mean like just like how the hell did
when you were looking at it and you saw it go down and you were in awe. You know those great plays when someone's jiving so well, the flow. Like sometimes when guys get in the flow, you just to watch them play, like you can't stop them. You can't. I always love watching asking the athletes that.
Yeah, man. Look, I mean, I think there were many times we go back and watch film, and I wouldn't say it happens so much in real time, but when you go back and you break down the film and you see how close each one of those plays that created this epic series where you had this phenomenal, turn of events in the game that changed the course of the game, right? You see how if one guy like that, like the ball almost got knocked out of Brady's hand, like the guy was a centimeter from knocking that out of his hand, and that would have ruined the entire drive, right? Like so many critical aspects go into every single play by all 11 of the guys that are on the field. And I got to tell you, there were so many 2 minute is like an artistic dance in the game of football, right?
It's brilliant the way y'all play that.
And the communication. And when you have a guy like Tom Brady, and you could go on for days about what he brings to the game, but it's no more evident, no more vivid than when you watch him work a team through a 2 minute situation. It's unbelievable, man. And the way that he did it, the masterful way that he would communicate with the receivers and the line and the tight ends and the running backs and how they would communicate back to him and how there'd be little adjustments. You see a guy like Kevin Falk, who's one of my all-time favorite teammates, and he was Mr. Third Down. If you needed a big play, find Kevin Falk, put every one of your guys on defense on him, and he's still going to make the play. And being around guys like that were money every time you needed them in the highest pressure situation was one of the coolest aspects about playing that game, man.
Anybody in the league when you were rolling around and were just terrified of, like who just you knew?
Every week, man. Look, as a left tackle, right? Like
you're going to high school or college, you had the tough guy, like the bad.
Oh yeah.
Like, hey man, this dude right here will light you up.
Hey, listen, I've always been very honest about some of these guys. Dwight Freeney, number 93, Colts, right? He was a football playing Jesse. That dude could dial it up and get it on every single snap of every single game. And he is, without a doubt, in my opinion, he's the best to ever play that position. He brought qualities that were so rare. Look, if you can consistently win with one move as a defensive lineman, you're an all-pro player. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, I got what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
just not like, he can do all. No. One move that you can not every time, but consistently win with, you're an all-pro player. He had 3. Not 1, not 2. He had 3 of them. He had a dip and rip, he had a speed to power, and of course, he had the spin move. And all 3 of them were all world. And that guy, his instincts were second to none. And the thing that most people don't realize is every team that played him, they would put 2 or 3 guys on him, or at least have eyes on him. Chip help, tight end presence, extra offensive lineman, guard helping the tackle. I mean, you knew where that son of a gun was every snap.
That's awesome.
Y'all planned for him in the meetings, huh?
Oh,
that's the guy I'm talking about. Like when the coach is like, "Hey, we're playing this team, but this son of a bitch is on here, and we gotta watch out for him."
That's a fact, man, and he was one of them. But when I got to the AFC East, I get to New England. I got John Abraham, perennial Pro Bowler. He's in New York. I'm seeing him twice a season. We got Xerxes, Jason Taylor. I call him Xerxes because he looks just like him.
I know exactly.
So JT's down in Miami, and he was the best in the game, in my opinion, before Freeney hit the scene. And then we had Aaron Schobel in Buffalo, who was another, perennial Pro Bowler and just a high motor, high intensity player that just found a way to get to the quarterback, man. So, look, those guys made me a much better player overnight, and I'm thankful for that.
So do you have any piece of nostalgia that you took from that life that you hold on to? Is it one jersey in particular? Is it one of the rings? You know what I'm talking about? Like every guy has something. And
Hey,
when
man.
you ask him, he's like, oh, yeah, it's just right here. But like, not that damn thing. I'm talking about the one thing when you look at it, like, man, that's it. It all boiled down to that.
I can't believe you asked me this, and I'm going to do it. And I apologize. You guys can edit this and have fun with this. This may be its own thing. This is the one thing. Look, I've auctioned off. I'm going to pan over here for you. We're in my crazy office here, but bear with me. See, there's the 3 Super Bowls that we didn't screw up, right? But look, if you got a guy like, Eli Manning, as goofy as he looks, I mean, you want to do something for him, right? I mean, we had to let him win. Anyway, okay, so I won't even stay on that topic. But so thank you. So I've auctioned off most of my stuff, but I'm not really a guy that gets into that stuff, right? I've never worn my rings. They sit in a lockbox in Ohio. So if you want to rob a bank, go to Greenville, Ohio. And there's all my rings.
I just want to keep them over here.
I actually I've never had them out, right? So I don't wear jewelry. They're cool as hell, don't get me wrong, but I'm not that guy. But the one thing that I covet, and if I ever lose this, it'll ruin me, and it is an email exchange with Bill Belichick. Now, on the surface,
this kind of thing. That's exactly what I want to know about.
Yeah. So listen, just so you know, I've never heard of anyone receiving an email from Bill Belichick in the history of my time when I played or ever since. And the reason I bring that up is because it's so foreign to think. I mean, by the way, I didn't even know Bill knew what a computer was. I thought he knew, like he knows football because that's what he does every second of every day, right? So I become a player rep in, I want to say 2006. I wanted to know where my 10,000 was going every year, right? I'm not a union guy, but I'm going to find out where this money's going. So I get voted in. I go to Hawaii because that's where you have to have a meeting, right?
Yeah.
Jesus. So
way on that.
Yeah. So, and I was the guy that got it switched back to the mainland and pissed off every Hawaiian. But anyway, so I go out there. I have to go. It's mandated, right? And when I get home, this 2007, right? We don't live like we do today. I wasn't checking my emails. I didn't even have the ability to do that. So when I get back, I go and look at my email, and I just survived a flight from Hawaii to Boston, right? And I get an email from Bill Belichick. Now, when I see it in my Microsoft Outlook, which I don't use anymore, but it's going back some days, I'm like, immediately, oh, okay. Like before I've even read it, I'm like, my guy's got me. Finally, somebody's going to bust my balls, right? Let's see what they wrote. And I read it, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. What idiots. So I go in the next day, and because it's talking about how I wasn't there for the first week of the offseason program, which obviously I wasn't there because I had to go to the freaking union meeting. So was a teammate of mine, right? So I spend all that night, and I find a service where I can send an email and make it look like it came from whoever I wanted. It took me forever to find it. So I send one to Dan Cope in our center, thinking that, he's probably the smartest guy, and he probably led the charge on this. So I'll throw it to him. And I write one kind of the way that he wrote it to me. And I walk in, and the first person I see is Cope sitting at the locker, and he's getting ready for the workout. And he's like, hey, man, you sent me an email last night? And I was like, no, you sent me an email last night? And he's like, no, I didn't, but I know you had to send me an email, right? And I'm like, no, Cope, what are you talking about? And he shows it to me. And I'm like, no, that's kind of crazy. I'm like, because I deny till you die, right? No one's ever going to get me to admit that I pulled a joke or was trying to, right? So he's kind of dumbfounded, and he leaves it alone, and we go do our workout, and nobody else comes up to me and says anything. And so now I know, because I do this for a living, busting balls, and I'm like, it definitely wasn't Copen, and no one else is taking credit for it. I need to go ask Bears, because whoever did it, there's no way they were smart enough to figure out how to send an email and make it look like it came from Bill. So I go up to his assistant, and I'm like, hey, as I'm leaving, who came in here and got you to send an email to me? And he's like, what do you mean? I go, I got an email from Bill. And he's like, oh, no, Bill sent you that email. And I'm like, yeah, right. And he's like, come here. And Bill was in a staff meeting. He takes me into his office, opens up his Outlook, and in his sent box is the email to me.
Oh,
and I'm like, oh, snap. This is getting real. So now I have one of two different ways to go. I can either go address it with him and, figure out why he was upset, because it was a pointed email. Or I can just say that he's got to be kidding and send him my own response. So here we go. And I take this everywhere with me, by the way. Okay. So it says it's from Belichick, Bill, which I thought it was fake. And it says greetings from the NEP offseason program in the heading. Starts off in quotes. It's a chance for us all to bond and start putting the wheels in motion for the following season. Left tackle Matt Light said in a recent interview. The foundation is put in place at this time of year. What you do in March, April, May, and June, what you do in that mini camp and passing camp, it has a direct effect on the beginning of your season, and you had to come out of the gate swinging pretty hard. That's what we've been able to do around here. End of quote. Hey, Matt, just read this quote from you, ... What the fuck? ? We have over 50 guys here working out today, and the one who isn't here does all the talking about how important the offseason is. Figures. A lot of your teammates were concerned about you and asked why you weren't here, but don't worry. We've let them all know that you're in Hawaii for a week. If you want to get something productive done out there, why don't you have them move this meeting to the week before, all in caps, teams start their offseason programs? ? Very respectfully yours, Bill Belichick, head coach, New England Patriots. Now, you can see why I thought that was a joke, right? There's no way that can be real.
Yeah.
That was 100% real. So I responded. And this is another reason why my wife thought I was going to be fired every year. Coach B, first of all, allow me to apologize for not responding earlier to your prior email. It took me days to write this, by the way. It has been my experience, limited as it may be, that a reflexive response does not serve anyone well. Thus, I felt it necessary to permit time to militate a more measured philosophic response. As you are certainly better aware than anyone, we as human beings are not automatons. Rather, we stand as a compilation of free-willed, rational beings. Given this, it becomes critical to impose a measure of collectivism for the benefit of the order. I realize that the concept of collectivism strikes a measure of aberrance in our rugged individualistic society, but it is such a collective good that allows us all to benefit. And it does not require a study of the incunabulum to realize that both coaches and players gain from a measured collective relationship with the financial bully pulpit held by the owners. Given this, and despite my commitment to the off-season programs, I felt compelled to move forward the collective good of the players through the attendance at the PA meetings. In the long run, it is generally for the benefit of all. My commitment to this end is in no way a negative reflection on my dedication and commitment to optimizing my personal performance to the greatest advantage of the team, your humble free-willed left tackle, Matt Light. Pretty basic.
That was
Felt
a
like
great point.
Felt like I covered it all. Just wanted to let him know that I'm invested.
I don't
I'm here.
feel that you drug it on in any capacity or anything.
Yeah, get to the point.
Yeah, it was great.
So this is this is what makes this my most prized possession. I did get a response, and before I read this, please know that I have never. Now, this was in 2007. April 11th, by the way, is when he responded, of 2007. We have never had a conversation about this, not ever. Not since I retired, not when I was playing. And by the way, this goes for most things that I've done to him, having fun. Never spoken about this, but this is what he sent. And the important part's in the subject heading. It says, concluding remarks, because we've never, ever emailed again, and I've never heard of him emailing anyone else either. So this will be the last time we do this, Matt. I just got to get this off my chest, is basically what he says. Matt, I need some time to let this one settle, but I'll start with this. Why don't you consider dedicating yourself to having fewer mistakes and not leading the team in, once again, being the most penalized player on offense? Your numerous false start penalties, in evidence again at the Pro Bowl, and other transgressions like taunting continue to make me think that your distractions off the field affect your concentration on the field. My advice, if you have an interest in improving your performance, would be to minimize your distractions and focus on maximizing your physical development and technique in the off-season program. I continue to feel that you were totally out of line commenting on the importance of the program when you were not in attendance with the rest of the team. Finally, Matt, There is no need to use multi-syllable words in your email that neither you nor I know. I am unimpressed. This will conclude my email exchange, and I will return to my efforts of trying to do a better job in coaching this football team. As for the PA meetings, don't worry about helping me. As I have said many times, and I remind myself, the best thing we can do for ourselves and our family is win, all in caps. Try to keep that in mind in your quest for world peace. Sincerely, respectfully yours, Bill Belichick, head coach, New England Patriots. So if you didn't think Bill was funny, that should show you that he does have one hell of a sense of humor. But I love the fact that we've never spoken about it.
That's so funny.
That's the good stuff. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
bro. Man, thanks for coming on.
And for our listeners, if you can go to his website, you want to say it one more time?
Yep, mattlight72.com.
Yeah, and help out the foundation. And you have an Instagram too, don't you?
I've never been on social media in my life, and I never will be, but I know that we have a great team that work really hard on that, so I bet we do.
Yeah, you do.
It's under the Light Foundation.
Yeah, Light Foundation. I follow it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you guys for listening in to another episode of the Team Never Quit podcast. We appreciate each and every one of you. And if you guys want to stay up to date with everything that we have going on, go check out our social medias at team_never_quit. Thank you guys. We'll see you next week.
This is the Team Never Quit podcast. So buckle up, Buttercup.